Hello and welcome back to another Magic video. This is Magic Online today because we're playing the Vintage Cube. I am Magic's Fen, and we're going to jump right into things here. First pack, there's Force of Will and there's Flooded Strand. I think Flooded Strand leaves us open for the most options, so I'm going to take that, though I do like Force a lot in this cube. Here we've got some decent options, but there is a piece of power sitting here. Tundra is also a great pickup, but you can do a few more fun things with Time Twister, so I decided to go big on this one. I don't expect, like, the Tundra to come back. Could get, like, an Elite Spellbinder or something back. We've got good blue-white stuff. This pack is not quite as interesting. I like Metamorph. Displacer Kitten is interesting. I do like the Triomes, though. The earlier I can just pick up these mana pieces, it just makes our deck all the better, and I can just start taking all sorts of wild cards. Here, not too much in blue. We've got a few interesting options. City of Traders is a new ad, and I think just playing like a 3-drop on turn 2 is pretty darn powerful. I've got the Wandering Emperor here highlighted, also very strong. Lingering Soul sort of in consideration, but overall kind of a weak pack for a Vintage Cube. Here we've got a few interesting things. I'm not that far off of a High Tide deck. I've got the Time Twister, so I am looking at that. Thought Picker Witch is there, the meme of the day. Fun, but not good. I think I'm just going to take this Soul Herder here, though. It's in the 2 colors we're in, and it could be fun to do like a blue-white Blink deck. Pass on the High Tide for now. It might come back, and if it does, then we could be looking a little harder at that. Here we've got some more Blink cards that I like. Mulldrifter, it's hard to get me away from a Mulldrifter. If I have the chance to draft Mulldrifter, I'm probably going to draft Mulldrifter. And given I already have a Soul Herder, that's just all the more fun. Not quite as much to pick out of here. I like the Wooded Foothills. It gets our Triome, so that's a pretty good pickup. Good to get our mana nice and sorted early. Here, not super exciting. All the good blue cards are gone. Chart of Course is okay, but it's not something I'm super excited about. I think I'm just going to take the Scrub Land here. We've got at least the Flooded Strand already that can go get it. And here, again, we kind of have the same dilemma we've had this whole time. We can just take a Triome and have good mana for the rest of the draft. We look to be in Esper colors mainly, so pretty pleased with our mana situation so far. I think I take the Trespasser here. Actually, I think my clock winds down. I didn't actually get a chance to make that pick. I think I would have picked up either Trespasser or Adeline over Baral there. We're not really looking like a counterspell deck. Take a Recruiter of the Guard out of the wheel on that pack. Cabal Therapist, not a very good card. I do like Lingering Souls. It just always provides a lot of bodies. There we take a card, and our internet goes wacko for a moment, but we got a Student of Warfare, which is a nice pickup for an auto pick. Here, a couple interesting cards. Esper Sentinel works well in our tempo strategy we're getting pushed towards right now, so I'm going to take that. And here we get a nice little gift of a Mox Pearl. Coming second pick, I imagine someone already picked a piece of power out of here. We are extremely happy to pick up the Mox Pearl here. A few good options here, but I think Swords to Plowshares is just too darn strong. I would love to have that Jite Wheel or the Mox Diamond. Both are extremely strong and pretty good in like these low drop decks, but we'll take what we can get. Picked a Resto out of that last pack, and here we get a pretty easy to fairy Time Raveler. It's just very strong. Not too much from this pack. We're looking at, just a few things here. We can't really do the double green for Endurance, so we'll take a Tithe Taker. We have a little bit more fixing in Concealed Courtyard, but we don't really need it, so I'm just going to take this Knight of Autumn. It'll help us do some sideboardy things mostly. Court of Bounty is good, but Palace Jailer is a next level card. That card wins games on its own. Marsh Flats came around somehow, so we're happy to take that. Here we are between Suspicious Stowaway and Monastery Mentor. We take the Stowaway there. We don't have quite enough non-creature spells to make the Mentor good. Pretty easy Relic Warder out of this pack. Slime Ball's kind of interesting. Good with Soul Herder, but not quite good enough. Fortunately, Dream Halls, this is not a Dream Halls deck. We need to be doing really broken things to be doing Dream Halls. So we'll take it straight to the board. Same with the Elf. And the Blood Chief's Thirst is actually a pretty nice pickup. We can play it pretty easily with our mana. Don't really want to run it in the main deck, but happy to have it in the sideboard. Here we got a few things. The Tropical Island is pretty good. It turns our wooded foothills into an island. Overgrown Tomb, not really on the same scale. So we're gonna take the Trop there. Gitaxian Probe would have been good too. So here's Stoneforge Mystic. Unfortunately, we passed that Jite earlier, and we just passed a sword. So I'm gonna take Phantasmal Image. It's always pretty darn good. It's rarely amazing, but it's always pretty good. Easy Giver of Runes here. If you're these low to the ground white decks, I find that Giver of Runes and Mother of Runes, speaking of which, are just the best cards you can have to lead off on turn 1 with. So pretty easy pickups for both of those. And we've got like the white deck 3 pieces that you really, really want. The 2 Moms and the Swords to Plowshares. We'll take Cathar Commando there. It's just been quite good. Celestial Colonnade is looking good here. We don't really have any Planeswalkers for Arena Rector to get. Helm of Awakening doesn't do anything for us. We would have taken that sword if we had taken the Stoneforge Mystic earlier, but we did not. So I'll take the Thraben Inspector here. Kind of hope to wheel the Ephemerate. Not likely, but we'll go for it. Hero Bladehold is a perfectly good top end here, so we'll be pretty happy about it. I am going to see if I could play the Omnath, but I'm not quite hitting the right mana to put it in the deck. It's pretty close, but it's not quite there. And Hero can do a lot of the same work. So now I took the Sword of Feast and Famine for the board, and somehow the Stoneforge Mystic came back around. I would be pretty happy with the Ravages of War, but we'll definitely take the Stoneforge now that we have the sword in the board. And that'll come back into the main deck. Golos isn't doing much for us here. We'll take a Dismember. Botanical Sanctum can help out the mana a little bit. And we're going to take a Mirari's Wake and a Candelabra to finish off the draft. And you can see our mana's pretty good. We got a Mox. Let's just jump right into the games here. On the draw here to start the game, we get Duressed right away. We'll lead on our Celestial Colonnade, since we don't have any turn 1 plays this time. Pretty happy just to play out Stoneforge Mystic at this point. Grab our 1 equipment. A little risky to have just 1 equipment in your Stoneforge deck, but hasn't come up yet anyways. Not gonna play out anything. Baleful Strix is pretty good, but we could just bring in our sword and then equip it right away. Can get past the Baleful Strix, no problem. So we'll play our Marsh Flats, equip here. Now they can't really do anything about this. They only have black mana up, so I'm not worried about Fatal Push. We have pro-black. Grab another land here, and we're going to tap everything we can. Get a tap land here. It'll untap with this hit, of course. Sword hits. They discard Dire Fleet Daredevil. They don't have any red mana, so that makes sense. And then I'm going to play the Recruiter of the Guard here. A lot of good potential picks. Soul Herder is probably the most interesting to me right here, but I think I went with the Selfless Spirit just because I'm way ahead on board. And it feels like the only way I could really lose is if they somehow raft me. But they play a Graveyard Trespasser. Again, I don't care too much about black creatures because I can just get past them. No problem. I also have the sword up. And I'm thinking about pathing something here. Or Swords to Plowsharing. I think I do, and I think I hit the Graveyard Trespasser. Just because it's in the way, it gains life. I've got so many cards up on my opponent, I'm going to keep making them discard with the sword. So now I get to cast Mulldrifter, go up another 2 cards, hit with the sword, I get a Mox too. I get to untap my lands, do a bunch of damage, they have to discard. And you can see how the sword is really just putting in work here. So there's the Spirit, there's the Mox, and here's the Hero of Blade Hold. Could have played the Palace Jailer there, but probably any card really wins the game at that point. Change a few things around here. Knight of Autumn and Bloodchief's Thirst come in. I feel like they're likely to have low to the ground creatures. We saw a few artifacts, so happy to bring in the Knight of Autumn. Debatable what to bring out. It's possible I should just be running Bloodchief's Thirst over Dismember as a baseline. But I don't know if I actually drew it in any of the games, so did not come up. Lavamancer comes down on turn 1. Pretty good sideboard in from our opponent. I kept kind of a sketchy hand here. I'm not sure if I would keep this again. We're not doing anything on turn 1. We're not doing much of anything on turn 2. And our opponent has this Grim Lavamancer, which is difficult for us to deal with. So it looks like I'm just going to pass here, and I'm going to play Cathar Commando. Trade it off. No, I'm just going to play it. So I think we're getting stuck here on 2 lands. They're going to Burst Lightning my Commando, and they did it on my upkeep, which was kind of odd. Now I had the option to sack it and destroy it. Fortunately, I did not draw the land, and I do end up Bloodchief's Thirsting the Grim Lavamancer. They have got cards in their graveyard now, so I just want to get that out of the way. Play an Esper Sentinel here. If we can get a couple extra card draws, it might make a difference, help us hit those lands that we're behind on. Unfortunately, they got a Rishadan port, which is going to make our lives a lot more difficult. Have to take the 2... Well, actually, never mind. We are dismembering this Mutavault. So we keep a little bit closer to land parity with them. They do tap down our Triome, as expected. We'll hit for 1 damage. If we can just get a few lands onto the battlefield, we'll feel pretty good. They're tapping down the port here, and they're going to play Glen Alondra, have the mana up to sack, and counter a spell, but we don't really care too much about that. We have Phantasmal Image, and we're going to copy their Glen Alondra. I feel like I could probably get some decent value out of it. They're more likely to play non-creature spells than I am, such as Time Warp, for example. Of course, I don't have the blue up, but that's okay. It's also just like the best creature out there right now. So I make a mistake here. I persist and I choose Esper Sentinel as the copy. But since it's a 1/1, that makes it, of course, die immediately. There weren't any other targets. I'm iffy about whether I should have made that block with that in mind, though. Opponent does not hit me with the port here. I don't know if they forgot or what happened exactly. But we'll take that chance to play out our Stoneforge Mystic and a Mom. And next turn, if they want to port me, I'll be able to flash in my sword in response. Expressive Iteration from the opponent here. They do pay the 1 for the Esper Sentinel. So it looks like they are not going to tap my mana down this next turn. Expressive Iteration remains a menace across all formats that it's legal in, which is a dwindling amount these days. Not too many formats left with that card in it. And opponent is tapping big. They've got Oko. And Oko is a problem, as it always is. They turn my Stoneforge into an Elk. And we're going to do our best to try and get this Oko off the board, but It's going to be tough sledding from here. They still have the blocker up. They can't sacrifice at the moment, but I don't think they would anyways. Just going to play the sword here, plus another creature. Should probably be doing this post-combat. Here, I'm giving the Stoneforge protection from blue, so I can just hit the Oko. I'm willing to trade with the Glen here. If they want, they don't. And I'll play my other Giver of Runes. Might not have been necessary to give protection to the Stoneforge, but we'll see. Sword of Fire and Ice, unfortunately, comes down for our opponent. It's pretty good here. They get to hit, draw an extra card, do extra damage to me. Not to me, to my Mother of Runes. And the Oko is still looming large here. Even if we get rid of it now, it's already put in a lot of work. I don't remember what their play is here. I think they do elk something. They do elk the Giver of Runes. I put the sword on the Sentinel and play out my student. Level it up a couple times. I'm imagining I get to hit with the Sentinel here. Send 2 creatures at Oko to try and finish it off. For sure, it does happen. We do get our sword hit. Opponent discards Liliana the Veil. How ironic. And we get to play a Mulldrifter. So that was a pretty good turn for us. Unfortunately, we can't block this Glen Alondra. It does have protection from blue. But not feeling too bad about our position at this point. We have a bigger board presence. Resto deals with the Glen pretty well, so does the sword. Yeah, if we might be able to do the old Mulldrifter Resto Angel this next turn. Of course, can't block here. I think they're going to shoot the Mulldrifter. It's really their only option, honestly. Unless they want to just shoot me. So they do, and actually I think I'm just dead to burn spells here. We get a char right to the face. Unfortunate way to go out just when we were starting to get control of the board. But that kind of stuff does happen every once in a while. We played Dismember earlier in this game. That lost us 4 life, so that's where a bunch of the life for this game went, unfortunately. Don't know if I have any other changes here to make, and in fact I don't. I just submit the deck again. Let it keep rolling through. We're going to keep this hand. It's a little slow. 2 tap lands is kind of unfortunate for our tempo deck, but it'll work. Don't really want to go down a card on the play. Pass to the opponent. They have a Lavamancer again on turn 1. It's a little unfortunate for us, but that'll happen. We're going to play an Esper Sentinel. The best way they can get cards into the graveyard for Lavamancer is by playing instants and sorceries, so if we can just play the Sentinel now, that'll kind of prevent the Grim Lavamancer from getting online too early. And they are going to Burst Lightning and pay the 1, so even though that was kind of a 1-for-1, that's still like not a bad exchange for us. We made them use their whole turn too. I'm going to get this Lavamancer off the battlefield now. It's just doing a little too much against us. And then I'll play all my 1-drops. Opponent has their full-on Grixis mana. There is a Thief of Sanity, very scary card. We're just going to get rid of that as soon as we can. Paying the full 4 life because I do want to get the Stoneforge Mystic out this turn. Get the sword. I think I'm just going to attack with the Thraben Inspector here. I'll protect my Stoneforge Mystic. It'll be a pretty good play if we can put the sword out and equip it next turn. Rekindling Phoenix comes down for the opponent, and it's kind of a problem. It's a little bit bigger than everything we have. And it also isn't one of our sword colors. So we're going to put the sword out though, we're going to equip it. And we're just going to give ourselves pro red here and just make sure we get in. Even though it's a little bit of a waste of a Giver of Runes, sometimes you have to be willing to use these cards on the offense as well as the defense. Opponent has the Char, which is going to prevent our offense from happening. And now Rekindling Phoenix is a much bigger roadblock. We'll play our Cathar Commando and we'll crack our clue here. And we drew a Mulldrifter, which is not too bad. But we don't currently have attacks, unfortunately. Draw our 2 cards here. And they're not bad, not great. Selfless Spirit is nice, just as a little insurance. But what we really need is something to either get rid of this Phoenix or let us push past it. If we can keep our sword hits coming, then we'll be in good shape. And Mother of Runes is a good way to do that. We just need to make sure it doesn't die. So we'll play the Spirit first. Looks like they're going to Thirst in response. So they get a little more card draw on. They discarded a Mountain to the Thirst. And then they're going to play Mother of Runes, or we're going to play Tithe Taker and Mother of Runes. Play Tithe Taker first, just in case it makes it a little harder for them to counter. And again, unfortunately, we still don't have attacks, so we'll just pass back. Don't want to trade my Thraben Inspector for nothing. Opponent plays a Mutavault, which is another way to block. They're not attacking with the Phoenix. We drew a Restoration Angel, which is pretty good. So I'm going to put the Mulldrifter, equip the Mulldrifter with the sword, and give it protection from red. If they want to burn it in response, then I'll sack my Selfless Spirit. Yeah, and we equipped to the Mulldrifter so the Mutavault couldn't block. Just want to hit with our guys. So we'll see if this Mom activation resolves. And opponent is thinking about something, and looks like they are going to tap low for something. Or they're working out exactly what the mana should be, and they use a Mystic Confluence. What they do is return 2 permanents to my hand and draw a card. Strangely, they drew, or they didn't return the Mulldrifter. I guess because they don't want me to draw another 2 cards. But this is also hitting for a lot of damage. And untapping my land, so the tempo doesn't really do that much. Kind of just a rough spot in general. Baleful Strix comes down. Again, my sword doesn't make me care too much about that. Seasoned Pyroman from the opponent. Discards a land, draws 2. And here I get to do one of my favorite plays in Magic coming up here. Opponent has a Ragavan to throw out on the battlefield. But I get to do Restoration Mulldrifter stuff. This is the life that I want to be living. This is what Cube means to me. It's a beautiful thing, folks. Draw some good cards. We got a Recruiter. We got a Knight of Autumn. Big thing, though, is just getting the sword out there. We're going to put it on the Resto just because it does more damage. Again, we'll give it protection from red. And then we'll play out a few more things just so we can untap all our lands again profitably. Looks like we're going to play the Knight of Autumn and and kill that Baleful Strix. It's just a little too in the way. We're getting, so our board is looking pretty wide, so we're happy just to attack with everything here. And I believe that's lethal. So nice win there in round 1. Nice 2-1. Let's go on to the second one here. Almost a great hand. We're missing a land there. Can't just function off of 1 Mox Pearl, unfortunately. I like our 6, though. We've got 3 lands, 3 colors present here, most of which are white, so that's good. Lead on our Giver of Runes here. And we got a nice curve into Selfless Spirit on turn 2. Nothing changes with the Lingering Souls draw here. Going to attack with our Giver of Runes. I don't need to protect my Selfless Spirit from anything. And unfortunately, I accidentally passed through my turn there, so we missed the Selfless Spirit. Could have had a really nice 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop curve out, but our opponent missed their second land drop, so we're just going to keep going. Given they missed that land drop, I want to play the Cathar Commando and just blow up that Mana Rock. If I can just, like, stop my opponent from executing their game plan right away, then I'm going to do that. And it does seem to pay off, because they only have a Triome on the next turn. And nothing really to stop me from what I'm doing. Going to play an Esper Sentinel here, and the Selfless Spirit. That'll protect us from any kind of Wrath effect, while still getting a lot of power out onto the board. They play a Coalition Relic, and we do get to draw the card for that, and it is a land, which is a good pickup. And we got a Tithe Taker here. I'm going to get a little tricky with this Tithe Taker. I know that Coalition Relic, its tap ability to add a counter is not a mana ability, so I'm not sure my opponent is going to pick up on that. So if I play the Tithe Taker here and they don't tap in response, then I do get to get them a little bit. And in fact, that's exactly what happens. So they can't tap their Coalition Relic for the extra mana. Hopefully that throws off their whole turn. And indeed, they don't have much going on. We do get to get in there with the whole crew and just go for the win. They have a Deceiver Exarch. It does force them to tap out. And they try to tap down our Tithe Taker. So we're just going to give the Taker protection from blue, so remains untapped. And we actually have exactly 7 damage coming towards them if we take out this Deceiver Exarch with the swords. And so we'll be able to kill them for Xaxes. Good game 1, was just able to keep them enough off balance so that they didn't really get to do anything on time. Didn't see a ton to bring in, so I'm just going to submit deck as is there. We didn't really catch a whole lot of what their deck was trying to do. Possible I should have brought in the Night of Autumn there. We did see 2 artifacts out of them, so that might have been a good one to bring in. Gonna play our Giver of Runes on turn 1 here. And Rona is a new addition to the Vintage Cube. I think it's a pretty good one. I like what they did there. It's in that awkward spot where it could be great and maybe I should be swordsing it, but maybe it's also not great. So I go back and forth a bit on whether I need to swords this or not, and I end up not swordsing it in the end. I'll just play my Stoneforge Mystic. Unfortunately, can't attack with the Giver of Runes, though. We'll use the Stoneforge ability and get our sword out, or get the sword to hand. And again, can't attack through the 1/3. It is a little too large. There's the Coalition Relic again, so our opponent has a lot of mana. I would love to play Teferi and just bounce that, but unfortunately I do have the tap land here. Maybe another case for just not playing the Stoneforge last turn and just swordsing instead. I think I'd be in a better position right now if I did that, but this is the line I took. The sword may turn out to be relevant here. And unfortunately, they have a Solemn Simulacrum, which is pretty tough for us to get through. Giver Runes does give protection from colorless, but that's not really how I want to be using my Giver of Runes. Do draw a land here. And I'm just going to slam this Hero Bladehold. If it just lives, we can do a lot of good stuff with it, so. Just going to play the hero. Not going to push through with the Stoneforge. And unfortunately here they just play Nicol Bolas. Plus it. They get a Mulldrifter from us. And at this point, I think I'm done. I don't think I can beat an active Nicol Bolas here. It's just not in the cards. So we concede the game 2. And I do decide to bring in the Knight of Autumn at this point. We have seen the artifacts frequently enough that I do want to bring it in. And we pull out the Soul Herder. Even though Knight of Autumn is one of the better things that goes with Soul Herder. Oh, and actually I brought it back in. I didn't see what I pulled out there, but we have a good hand to start. It's a little land heavy, but hopefully we'll draw out of that. We can cycle their Fiend's Tower if we really need to. Play the Student on turn 1. Turn 2, I believe I'm just going to put the Selfless Spirit out. They put a Lotus Bloom into exile on turn 1, which is pretty scary. We'll play the Spirit and hit for 1. It's better to get more creatures out earlier than just leveling up, I think. They play a Triome, no other plays from them. And I'm going to get this to 3 power now, because I can also play other things alongside of it. Keep getting stuff on the board, hitting for more damage. And we're going to play the Giver here. Don't need to keep up Swords to Plowshares. That'll be good all game. Lotus Bloom down to just 1 counter now, so next turn is the scary turn. Coalition Relic from our opponent also means they're just going to have a ton of mana next turn. We get the Mox Pearl. I can't quite level this up to double strike land, so I'm not going to bother with that. I have the Lingering Souls to play here. So we do. And I think about whether I want to keep up the swords here or level up 1 time, and I decided I'd rather keep up the swords. If I can get a little mana efficiency against them when they've got so much mana available, then that'll go a long way. So I can, like, get their blocker, level up all the way, maybe that'll be enough. Of course, totally depends on what they have here. They've got 6 mana to start with, and it's a Time Spiral, which is a scary one. So they get to refill their hand entirely. So do we, and we drew the swords again, which is good, but only really matters if they play a creature here. I can't quite figure out if they're like a storm deck or just creatures. Seems we haven't seen a storm card out of them yet. But they're certainly playing a lot of the storm stuff, like Lotus Bloom, Time Spiral, Ponder. Here's a Path, which is okay. I think I just get a Plains here. Don't really need more blue. Got 2 additional blue sources if I need them. And so I drew a Stoneforge Mystic, which is a pretty good draw. So I'm going to get the Stoneforge out. Grab my sword. They've got 4 mana available. So I am expecting something to happen, but I kind of want to call them on it, so I am going to play this out. And we've got 5, 6, 7 damage, which is why I'm attacking with everything here. This is exactly lethal. Wait, I might have miscounted this when I did this the first time, because I don't think this is enough. So they Deceiver Exarch after attacks, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I think they would prefer to tap down the flyer with the sword here. I guess at that point, then I get to give her runes it up. Just kind of a tough spot in any case. I should not have attacked with the Giver of Runes here unless it was going to be lethal. So, bad math from me there. But we do hit with our sword. We get to untap. Let's play more stuff. I'll play the Tithe Taker because it's the most resilient of the bunch. Even a 1/1 is a pretty huge deal. I'm considering whether I want to play more things, but I think at this point I just want to minimize their outs. And so if they have like Wrath into another Wrath or something like that, or, you know, -3 to all my creatures somehow, then I've got more stuff to play. However, it doesn't seem that it mattered. They don't have anything. So we're just going to hit with everything that does anything, and that's enough to win the match. Jumping right into the next game here, we're on the play. We got a really nice hand. We get to lead on Esper Sentinel and go right into our friend Stoneforge Mystic, who has well overperformed really throughout this whole draft. Up against the Orcish Lumberjack, a very old school card you don't see a lot of. Kind of scary, but also kind of not scary at the same time. It taps to sack a forest, add 3 mana in any combination of red or green to your mana pool. So you can ramp up pretty big, but you also lose a forest every time you do it. Whenever I see that card, I never know quite what to expect. Like, ramping 3 is quite a bit, but I don't know. Jumping from like 1 to 4 isn't that exciting if you have to sack a land to do it. Didn't draw a land over here, unfortunately. And our opponent is bolting our Stoneforge Mystic, so we're going to put the sword in response. And now they do finally get their forest out that they can sack to the Orcish Lumberjack. You can see here they're doing the proper play of tapping it first and then sacking it to the Lumberjack, and they get a Toski. Very scary card. Commander All-Star, I believe. So we're going to equip the Sentinel here. Hope they don't have a burn spell. Luckily, they do not. And so that makes it so they have to pay an extra 3 anytime they want to play a non-creature spell. So looking to draw more cards here. And they play a Chandra. They don't have the 3 to spend, so we're going to get that extra card. However, Chandra, unfortunately, is a great way to be drawing cards off of Toski, and our opponent takes advantage of that. They're going to hit us with all of their creatures. We're going to take out the Lumberjack, but they get to draw 3 extra cards in the process. We'll play a Mox Pearl, which helps a lot. Thank you, Esper Sentinel, and we're going to put the Toski under our Palace Jailer here. We're going to hit them, untap our lands, draw a card. We'll get to play another creature here so we can block and keep the Monarchy. And even if they do have a way to remove our creatures, we don't mind too much. We can get the Monarchy right back, and I think we're in better position to hold on to it eventually. So if we just like have a little Howling Mine action back and forth here for a bit, I don't mind that too much. Hellrider is a pretty nasty one though. And they're actually going to Fire Blast right away. So that'll prevent us from double blocking the Hellrider. So we take a bunch of damage. I decided to just chump the Hell Rider here. They get the Monarchy. Tokens go away, and they get their Toski back. So things are looking a little harsh right now, for sure. However, we still do have our Esper Sentinel. And we're drawing extra cards, and we're doubling up on mana. Sword of Feast and Famine plus Esper Sentinel is actually kind of a sick combo. So now we get 3 blockers. We hit them again, because we want to untap our lands. We want to get that Monarchy back, and we do. And we're not going to play anything here. We're just going to pass with Restoration Angel up. So now they're hitting us with 4 creatures. We are going to take some Hellrider damage here, and that's okay. But we'll play our Resto. We're not going to blink anything. The saddest Resto is the one that doesn't get to blink their Mulldrifters. But things are looking good. We are going to just chump everything in order to keep our Monarchy, prevent them from drawing the extra cards. And they're going to cast a Chain Lightning on my Restoration Angel. They play a Ragavan, which is a good card, but it's kind of already too late for it. We have a Triome here to put out, and we're going to use as much of our mana as we can right now. Kept our Monarchy, so we can just take out whatever we need to take out here. And we don't even get to attacks. They've seen enough, which makes sense. They're probably going to have to chump block with Ragavan here. And given how much we've put out on the board, they're probably not getting the Monarchy back anytime soon. So, fair concede there. We put in the Night of Autumn. And I believe we're going to take out Soul Herders, not looking super exciting. I did decide to keep the Dismember here. I should have brought in the Blood Chief's Thirst, probably. I believe I do in the last game, but would have been useful to have here. Mulligan that first hand just because it didn't do much. We got a nice 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop here, though. They put a Ragavan out, so we'll put out our Sentinel. And I am happy to block it here if they give me the chance, but they do stomp. We get to draw a card. But they get their mana. They reveal one of our cards, but it's not one they can cast. Play a Giver of Runes here and pass the turn. I am happy enough to block the Ragavan with my Giver. Just does a little too much. And they play a Robber of the Rich. I want a Swords, but I don't want them to get a card. And I want them to do their attacks first without knowing I have a Swords, so I let this trigger go on the stack, and then I cast Swords. The trigger resolves, and we have the same amount of cards in hand at that point, so they don't get an extra card. We untap, and I play Lingering Souls here, get some board presence going on. They've still got their Bone Crusher that can be played. And they play a Wrenn and 6, which is a problem for us. They already have a Windswept Height, whatever. Windswept Fetch land in the graveyard. We're going to hit Wrenn and 6 for 1 more point. If they want to downtick and kill the Spirit, that's okay with us. But if they start upticking, getting lands over and over again, that's a little more complicated. Unfortunately, they have the Dire Fleet Daredevil here, and we had the Swords in our graveyard. So they get the Swords, our big creature, away there, unfortunately. And now we're really far behind. They've got the Smuggler's Copter active. We can hit their Wrenn for 1 each turn, but they can just keep ticking it up and it remains at parity. And then they play the Hex Drinker, which is, I think, one of the most powerful cards in the cube. Very difficult to beat. Good at every single point in the game. Debatable whether it really should be in the cube. It's kind of not that fun because it either does nothing or just wins the game by itself. But, you know, I don't mind it in there. I like to play with it too. They accrued their Smuggler's Copter for some reason. Not really sure why. Maybe just to F6 through their turn. But we kill the Copter with our Knight of Autumn. And you can see their play here is just level up the Hex Drinker so it gets into the protection from instance range. We don't have good blocks, of course. And they're going to play this Bloodfeather Phoenix, which we don't mind too much, but we are extremely concerned about that Hex Drinker. Keep the Wren in check here as much as we can. The Phoenix can't block. We've got the Resto available here just in case they try to attack before leveling up the Hex Drinker. But they're too smart for that. They decide to level it up all the way to level 8. And at this point, we're done. Cannot beat that Hex Drinker. There's just no way for us to get around it. It's got protection from everything. So now we do bring in the Blood Chief's Thirst. Pull out the Suspicious Stowaway. It hasn't shown up all draft, so who's going to miss it anyways? And we do have the Thirst in hand. This hand, though, is just a little too sketchy. It's close to good, but one land, I don't think it gets white, or at least it gets white tapped. It's going to be too slow and could just lose. So we mulligan, and the second hand is much, much better. Student of Warfare on turn 1 here. Have a couple options for our land drops on turn 2. There's that Orcish Lumberjack again. And I think I just get the Trop here. No, I get the Triumph, never mind. I'm not willing to trade the Student for the Lumberjack at this point. And they just play another Mountain, so Lumberjack's not doing a whole lot at the moment, but the Forest could come down at any point. Phoenix unable to block. I'm not sure how long that card is for the cube. It seems a little underpowered for everything else that's going on. Maybe it's good enough just in a super aggro red deck. But I don't know. It seems a little bit slow. If it had haste, I think we'd be talking a little bit better. 2/2 flying haste, can't block. Maybe that's too good. Not sure. Here's a Robber. They didn't play an attack with it because we are down on cards compared to them. We get our hero out. We're going to keep our Mother Runes up. And here's the Forest. So they do play it, tap it, sack it. They've got 7 mana to work with here. And they're going to put out a pretty good roadblock for us. This is the Whisperwood Elemental, which kind of profitably blocks everything we have. And it also creates colorless tokens, which are Sword and Mom cannot get around. So now we're taking 2 in the air every turn for the time being. They played a Direfleet Daredevil. I'm not sure if that was really good or not. Being a 2/1 first strike is good against our tokens that we can make, but at the moment it's difficult for us to attack with anything anyways. I guess they'd be trading, if they didn't play that, they'd be blocking the Whisperwood on a token or blocking one of our tokens with Whisperwood and probably blocking the other one with the Manifest. No, because then they're blocking. Okay. Yeah, I guess that works because that'll stop them from taking a bunch of damage. We are going to give this hero pro red to get in a hit here. And we're going to see the tokens aren't too effective. One gets eaten there, and the other gets eaten by the Direfleet Daredevil. So the play does end up working out pretty well for them. We don't have a lot we can do with our mana, so we're just going to level up our guy as much as we can here. Not all the way, because we are going to re-equip this sword. Just so it sits here on defense. We don't want them attacking with everything. So they hit us again. We drew the Mulldrifter. So the student is still a 5/5. They could block with red creatures, but they're probably not going to if we had just attack here. Could just throw an Orcish Lumberjack in front of it too, I guess. I kind of just want to keep up my mom, though, for the turn. I do want them to still have to jump block with something. So I will be attacking here. But I'm not going to tap the mom to make it be the token from them. The manifest token. So in comes our student. I think they block with the Lumberjack. No, it is just the manifest token. The Windswept Heath underneath it. Not sure if they've got something else that Orcish Lumberjack matters for. But in any case, we get our Mulldrifter out. We get a Resto and a Selfless Spirit off of it. Both pretty darn good draws from the Mulldrifter. Mulldrifter also having reach is very important here. Smuggler's Copter does give them a colorless flying blocker. So that's a little unfortunate. Worth noting, this is an important time that Robber the Rich has reach. It is an archer, and it has reach, so we do have to give this pro-red so we can attack with the Mulldrifter, and they don't have any blocks except for the Smuggler's Copter. They do decide they do want to chump block here. They'll get a loot, because good old Smuggler's Copter loots on block as well as attack. Classic. But we get that off the battlefield, and now we've got Restoration Angel up with Mulldrifter, which is a pretty good place to be. Yeah, opponent kind of seeing that things aren't going so well this game. They don't have all the other sources of mana that they have had in the other games. We've seen blue out of them, we've seen green stuff out of them, and they don't have any of that mana right now. If they ever get a forest, they could have a lot of mana pretty quickly. They just hit with the Phoenix here. I think they were wondering if I had Restoration Angel there. They did see it, I believe, in previous games, but they ended up not playing around it. And we get to Resto our Mulldrifter, the best feeling in the world. The best feeling in all of Magic the Gathering. So we get to eat the Phoenix for free, and then they play a Rekindling Phoenix, which, similar to the first game, still an annoying problem for us. We get another land out, and we're going to equip the Restoration Angel, just so we do a little bit more damage. Thraben Inspector comes down, get our token, play a Selfless Spirit. We're just playing as much stuff as we can. Gonna give this protection from red to get past that Phoenix and the Robber. And we're gonna sack our Clue pre-combat so that we have all our mana up after the sword gets hit. Gets in for a hit, rather. So we do 5 to them, untap all our lands. Fortunately, not too much we can do with our mana. We drew 2 lands off of our... Or we drew a land off of our Clue. So we'll get the student up to double striking levels. Then I'm sensing we might be near alpha from the opponent, so I do decide to just move the sword over. Give us any better blocks. And in fact, they do decide to alpha here. Now as things sit, we're fine, but we do have to make sure our blocks are all good. They do get the Robber trigger, which might be a big part of the reason why they're doing this. Aside from like maybe just seeing that the game was rapidly getting out of control here. So they send in everything. But our blocks are still looking pretty good. We get to put the Whisperwood under the student. We eat several of their creatures. And then we just want to chump block because we don't want to die to burn spells. Somehow they got in for 6 and then they have a Char in hand. That wouldn't be very good for us. Doesn't look like that's the case. They're sacrificing their Whisperwood Elemental so that they get a bunch of Manifest tokens. We'll sack our Selfless Spirit so all our creatures become indestructible. Yeah, and I think this whole play was just desperation. Try and get better creatures under the Whisperwood, as well as get an extra draw off of the Robber of the Rich. They do have a Swords from me, from the Robber. So they do get to take something out, but we have our blue source, we get to activate Colonnade, and that's enough to get the win. And we are trophy players, yeah, very nice. So thank you all for watching, really appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will catch you in the next one.